the October 7th meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission to order. And I guess we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody on? Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can we have a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Mene? Commissioner Mene? I don't see anymore. Is he there? Commissioner Green?
Present. Hi, everyone.
Yes, hi. Let's see. Chair Laguna?
Present.
And let's see. Chair Marlies?
Here.
And hold on, let me just, I thought I saw, here he is. Never mind, I guess I don't. So we do have quorum because you guys are online, so we can go ahead and get started if you'd like. And Commissioner Okello and Commissioner Mene are absent.
Okay. I guess we need to adopt a resolution to continue the meeting. Is that right, Nicholas?
Yeah, Chair Merrily. So you may recall at the end of last meeting, we had a conversation regarding how the commission would presume its meeting, or continue its meetings after the October 1st deadline of the governor's executive order regarding suspension of certain provisions of the Brown Act. And the state had developed some legislation, and it was signed by the governor, that would allow Brown Act subject bodies to continue to suspend those provisions of the Brown Act and continue to meet virtually if certain provisions are or certain conditions are met. And at this point in time, those conditions continue to be met because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the state legislation requires that every 30 days, the body is to adopt a resolution. County council, now the legislation doesn't contemplate a situation in which a body doesn't meet every 30 days. And so the county council's office has advised that if the commission adopts the resolution at the beginning of every meeting, we will still be able to meet virtually. And so this is something that we'll also have to, again, do next meeting, should the commission choose to do so. But in order for us to have a meeting today, the commission will need to adopt that resolution.
Is there, there's resolution wording here. Do we need to read that, or do we need to make a motion to adopt it? This is the first time we've done this. So yeah, how do we do this?
Do you want me to step in, Nick?
Yes.
Yeah, so Commissioner, I know you'll have to adopt the resolution. I don't know if you'll have to read every word of the resolution, but I'll defer to Craig on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
this isn't an ordinance. This is just a resolution. So, the idea, right, was that the executive order that had been in place until the end of September suspended certain requirements related to teleconferencing. Ordinarily when the Brown Act does allow for teleconferencing, but there are certain requirements, including that all teleconference locations have to be fully accessible to the public. And so part of what the executive order had done is suspend those requirements. Because that is now that's now sunsetted, the legislature has passed AB 361. You adopt findings. That's what I believe that's part of the packet that the commission has in front of it. You adopt your findings that meeting in person would continue to cause a risk of health and risks to the health and safety of attendees. The county board of supervisors did adopt its AB 361 resolution last week, and that resolution encouraged all county boards and commissions to do the same. So you will need to make a motion and second it, and a majority vote will be sufficient. I do think, Chair Merrily, you'll want to call for public comment before you do take action, as you would with any agenda item. But otherwise, unless there are any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak to this issue?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Before I go ahead and proceed with public comment, I want to go ahead and talk about the procedures and how to raise your hand and unraise your hand for the Zoom video conference meeting. So see if you're attending this meeting on Zoom video conference, will be asked to raise your hand feature in order to organize any public comment during the general public comment period. And for those items on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raised hand feature in order to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raised hand function. For example, you can raise your hand at the beginning of a meeting for an item that you want to talk about later in the meeting. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your hand and account, and please begin speaking at that time. You will have 2 minutes. Right now for a public comment for this item, I do not see any hands raised, but I do see Commissioner Green with her hand raised after we're done with, as we close public comment.
Commissioner
Wait.
Green.
Just kidding. Sorry, it kind of left. It came and went just really quickly. So one more time, if you want to speak on this agenda item, please go ahead and raise your hand. Press *9 if you're calling by phone. We'll give you just a few seconds. If not, we'll go ahead and refer back to commission or questions. Okay, I don't see any more hands raised.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion that we adopt this resolution so that we can have the meeting?
So moved. This is Heather. I'd like to make the motion that we adopt this resolution to meet remotely.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Great. We have Commissioner Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Okello,
Aye.
Vice Chair Laguna,
Aye.
Chairman Merlis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And I just wanted to say, it'd be great to hear from the public if the public does have any input on this item. I think it's worked pretty well for us to meet remotely. People don't have to drive and find parking. And in a way, it makes it easier to attend. I guess if you have a computer that will do Zoom. So anyway, if there are any members of the public in the future that want to talk about this, I think we will probably propose to have our next meeting this way too. But if there's any reason that we shouldn't, I'd like to hear about it. That said, we passed it, and so we can go ahead and have our meeting.
Hey, Chair Merlis, before we move on, so I did have one question for the county staff. Are there any plans for the Board of Supervisors or for other bodies within the county to start moving into in-person meetings, or is this just going to be kind of for the foreseeable future, the plan to continue to meet virtually?
Yeah, Commissioner Laguna. So I've spoken with a couple other staff members at the county who work with boards and commissions, and from those I've spoken with, it seems like the plan will be to continue to take the Board of Supervisors lead as to meeting virtually versus meeting in person. So when the board makes the determination that it is safe to do so, the recommendation that we made to those boards and commissions will be that that's the time to meet back in person, and I'll follow that lead as well. I have not heard from the board as to if they have a timeline that they would like to be back in person, whether it's the end of the year or whatnot. At this point, I know they're just going to continue to meet virtually until such time as it's safe to resume in-person meetings.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 4, which is public comment for things that aren't on the agenda. Are there any members of the public that have any general comments that are not on the agenda this week? Do we have any
Thank you.
public comment?
Hi, thank you, Chair. We're opening public comment for items not on the agenda. I do have 4 hands raised at the moment. So I will first call, hold on, let me just go ahead and share my screen and put my timer on. you'll have 2 minutes, but I will first call on Miss Lenny Roberts, followed by Carlisle Ann Young. Ms. Roberts, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Hold on, let me just go ahead and double check again that she's unmuted. Let's see. There you go. Ms. Roberts, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let's see. Now we're back on the share button here.
Well, I'm sorry.
And go ahead.
To find what I'm going to talk about, I have a full screen. I have to reduce my screen. Can you
Go ahead.
timer until I can figure out how to shrink the screen? Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Done. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm ready. If you could start the timer again, would be nice.
Hold on. It threw me off. Hold on just a second. Hey, there, okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Len. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Lenny Roberts. I'm speaking for Green Foothills. I've been their legislative advocate for over 40 years. Green Foothills has always been a strong ally of county parks, and I've worked on every ballot measure for funding parks, including the original Charter for Parks back in 1972. I was involved in the establishment of the County Parks Foundation, and I've been an annual donor. What I need to say today causes me some personal angst, as it is not my usual practice to criticize. The natural resources that are in the Carroll County parks are world class, and your commission and the County Parks Department have a duty to protect these resources and ensure that the public recreational uses do not adversely affect them. Now I'm getting some changes in my my written material is getting corrupted here. But at your August 5th meeting, at the urging of Commissioner Merrilees and before the close of the public comment period, your commission voted to recommend that the Board of Supervisors certify the initial study mitigated negative deck. Public comments were limited to 1 minute each. It's disappointing that no consideration was given to the many voices of the public who are not at your meeting. Many people are innately afraid of dogs or have had traumatic experiences with uncontrolled off-leash dogs. Others are seeking a more contemplative experience and hope to see wildlife undisturbed by off-leash dogs. All of these people are recreationally displaced by off-leash dogs, and this is a significant number. And with respect to wildlife, most off-leash dogs are not under voice control, and their innate instincts are to chase balls or frisbees or birds or rabbits and whatever wildlife there is. So these instincts can lead to injury or possible death to wildlife. And this is especially concerning at Pillar Point Bluff, where trails lead to the beach, where there have been documented cases of harassment and even death of a harbor seal pup at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. For all these reasons, the pilot program should be limited to Quarry Park. I hope that you can appreciate why I'm taking the time to speak up for recreationally displaced people and wildlife who don't have a voice at all. And I hope that the Board of Supervisors will give greater consideration to these concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. I will next call on Ms. Carol Ann Young. Please go ahead, accept my invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Could you hear me?
It popped up too quick. Did I unmute it?
You're good. I haven't started you yet. Are you ready?
That pop-up window only was there for a minute. Yeah, I was just going to speak in favor of having Zoom meetings still, and the Mid-Coast Community Council is planning to have hybrid meetings, and I believe the Montero Water and Sanitary District too, because out here on the coast we do not have any kind of meeting room that's big enough to support in-person meetings, and they've already made arrangements, to continue on in Zoom fashion, because they do find they get a lot more people attending that way. So even if you do go back to in-person meetings, there is a way to do it both remote and in person for the public that doesn't want to drive all the way over to Redwood City to participate. So I just want to put that out there for you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your comment. We will next call on let me see, Ron Snow, followed by Alice Newton. Mr. Snow, please accept this invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking when you're ready. Let's see. Can you hear us?
Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. You know, the county has just a wonderful park system, and it's almost world class. But there are some things that need to be improved. Recent events at Flood Park have demonstrated a severe lack of communication process with the public. As a member of the public, I find this really unacceptable, as do many others. County Park have a policy to keep the public informed of actions that impact the nature and ambience of the park, that would change its use or impact the wildlife and trees. This would mean that there would be procedures put in place to provide adequate notification to the public via posting of notices and emails. This policy would allow the public to learn details of actions, understand any related issues and impacts, and provide time to clarify those details and respond to county if necessary. Other county departments have similar policies and ordinances that generally provide a 2-week notice, 10 working days, of such planned and contemplated actions, such things as tree pruning, tree cutting, changes to pathways, maintenance that would close sections of the park, use of soil treatments or sprays, and other moderate to major actions in the park should be reason for this public notification process. Based on the substantial tree loss of some of the largest trees in the park this year, it seems clear that there is a lack of maintenance and care in the park. 3 of these trees were magnificent and historical and had a health rating of A and A++ just 5 years ago when county did a tree assessment. For their health to fail in such a short period of time after living for hundreds of years should be a major alarm to everyone. The stewardship of the park would appear to be severely lacking and oversight is needed. Please implement an emergency policy to keep the public informed. I went over there, but thank you. I appreciate this. This is something that I think all of us in the public want to be aware of things, and we want to have time to react. And that wasn't provided to us in these recent events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snow, for your comment. We'll lastly call on Alice Newton. Once again, if you have want to say something, please go ahead and raise your hand now so we can go ahead and move down the list quite quickly. But the last speaker I have for this item is Alice Newton. Go ahead and start your timer at 2 minutes. Please unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Alice?
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, good, thank you. Well, I live immediately adjacent to Flood Park, and I have been involved in and following the plans for the reimagining of the park ever since that began. And I think that we are all very eager to have the park fixed up and to have the new amenities. But during the last year, I found that I started talking to people. I found one person, only one, who was aware of all the trees that were planned to be removed in order to build new amenities. And so by this point, we started a petition 6 months ago. As of today, this petition has 2,004 signatures. And there are a great many people concerned about the trees that are to be removed. And the main concerning item is the woodland area that is in the half of the park toward Bay Road. And in that woodland area, in the Plan 2020, after the old plan was modified to create a different space for the second requested soccer field, that soccer field was placed right in the heart of the oak woodland. So the oak woodland section of the park has, just to build that ball field alone, 22 trees that would be removed. And I guess my main message is that the people I speak to, we are not at all opposed to the sports fields. Most of the people, this is not about sports versus trees. This is wanting the designers to try to find a different location for that. We are quite aware that the Parks Department has a plan to have a public input meeting when the design is 30% finished, but we want you all the officials, to know that the public feels very strongly that these trees are one of the main assets in our community. I want to invite you to come to the park. If you haven't been out for a while, I'm sorry to be going over here. If you do come to the park, try not to follow the Parks Department's diagrams for the Plan 2020, because the paths on there are the new ones. They are different. So just walk around, try to look at the woodland and think of it as how it would be without the trees. I'm sorry, I'm way over.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thanks for your comment. And with that, Chair, I do not see any more hands raised for this item.
Okay. Great. Just a second here. What number are we on? We are on.
Hey, Chair,
We need to set the agenda. Action.
sorry,
number
through the chair on this item, I have a follow-up question for maybe for Nicholas, which is when does commission next hear the flood park item?
Yeah, Commissioner, great question. So the department's recently contracted with CMG Landscape Architects to prepare the design. So our first public workshop, which is actually going to be held before the 30% plans are developed, will be in probably January or February 2022. So it would make sense that the department and its contractors have an opportunity to finish collecting some of that baseline data, as well as engage with the public prior to development of the 30% plans before bringing it back to the commission. So that way, so I guess the long answer to your question is we could bring it back probably at your April meeting.
Okay, and just to inquire on the point that the third commenter raised about like the public noticing, what's the best way for the public to follow along and hear about opportunities to engage and provide feedback?
Yeah, another great question. So if you go to the department's website and you go to our Reimagine Flood Park page, there is an opportunity to sign up for automatic notifications. And there's an opportunity to sign up for automatic notifications. And so if you sign up there, you will get emails when we're noticing our public workshops, when we are releasing draft documents, anything like that. So anything project related to Reimagine Flood Park, you will be notified about.
That's wonderful. And my last comment then, or question would be, if it would be possible during this meeting to pop the link to that into the chat, just to make sure that the folks who are here and obviously interested in that project know right where to go. I think that I just want to make sure everybody's going to the same right place. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, great idea. I will do that right now.
Great. And so that's it on public comment. Now we move on to item number 5, action to set the agenda. Do we have a motion to set the agenda?
Move to set the agenda. This is Heather.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I have a first and a second. So let me see. Commissioner Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Okello,
Aye.
Chair Laguna.
Aye.
Sorry, Vice Chair Laguna, Chair Marilis. I keep saying that. I'm sorry.
Well, he's coming. He's enough.
I figured he wouldn't mind. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to hear from the Parks Foundation Executive Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Michelle Beasley with the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. As always, it's a pleasure to be with all of you virtually and hopefully in person soon. Just 3 things that I wanted to share with all of you. First of all, at the San Mateo County Parks Foundation's September board meeting, our board voted to release $50,000 to support tree health at Coyote Point, in particular looking at the eucalyptus trees that are dealing with all kinds of stress as a result of drought and whatnot. So thanks to the board for releasing that funding, and that's something that we're going to do for the next couple of years. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the foundation just wrapped up our first ever photo contest. So it ran over the summer. We had a panel of judges made up of parks staff and foundation board members. They chose their winners. So if you go to our website, supportparks.org, you can, the homepage will take you to the winners of our contest. We had 3 categories: waterscapes and landscapes, people in parks, and up close with nature. And then we had an overall winner. So go ahead and check that out. We will be doing this every 15 months. So it'll come back in fall of 2022. So encourage everyone to participate. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is that this month, the foundation will be releasing our 3 small grant programs that we do for volunteer groups, for park rangers, and a new grant program called Enhancing Accessible Access to San Mateo County Parks. So we're excited to release those later this month, and then award the grants probably before the end of the year. So stay tuned on that. And those are my 3 quick updates. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle?
I don't have any questions, but you know, there's somebody that has not muted their mic, so some external conversations are seeping through, so it muffled a little bit what Michelle was saying.
At this point, yeah, let's remind everybody to mute your mic if you've got anything at all going on where you are, and maybe just mute your mic when you're not speaking. Anybody, anything for Michelle? Thanks, Michelle.
Chair Mealy, I just remind you to call for public comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, does any member of the public have anything to say about the Park Foundation's report?
Okay, we're now opening public comment for Parks Foundation report. If anybody has anything to say, please go ahead and raise your hand now. If you're calling by phone, please press *9 to just mention to your desire to speak. And actually, I do see one hand raised for Mr. Ron Snow. Let me go ahead and pull up his the timer and go ahead and have him join us in just a second. Hold on one moment. Okay, 1 second, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, second. Sometimes my timer acts up a little funky. There it is. Timer. Okay. Let's see now. All right, here we are. So, Mr. Snow, please go ahead and accept my invitation and unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Michelle. I think it's fantastic what the foundation is doing. I've read through a lot of the history and work that you do. I appreciate the $50,000 for Coyote Point. It's great to have that resource to protect those trees. What I would like to do is maybe have you pay attention a little bit, if you would, to Flood Park in particular. We have a new website that the community has called floodpark.org. And in there, we're pointing out a lot of the issues that the public is concerned about. But as I mentioned in my prior remarks, 3 of the largest trees that have been rated with an A and A+ rating have been lost this year. And the most recent one, the public did not have time to respond to that tree because we felt that tree could have been spared, and but there was no time to do that. So it would be really helpful for you to take a look at Flood Park, see if there's some resources that can be provided to the county and the public to ensure that we don't lose any more of those trees. And there's a problem in the sense specifically, one of the things that came up was the identification of the mulch that's being used there and the depth of that mulch. Usually that mulch, I understand, is usually 2 inches to 4 inches, depending on the soil. But there's areas of that park that have, way over that amount. And so I think some stewardship and oversight, if you could provide some oversight, that would be fantastic if you have resources. Thank you.
I will definitely go check out your website. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Snow. Let's see, let me take a look and see if anybody else. I do see one more person with their hand raised for this item. Let me go ahead and let me see. One second. Let's see, the next person, as it was Alice Newton. Alice, did you want to go ahead and still speak on this item?
I do, thank you. Yes,
Go ahead.
thanks. I'm
Thank
just bringing up to Michelle something that's very dear to my heart. I bring my grandchildren over to the playground at Flood Park, and I've done this for years, but I am so excited about the idea of having a new all abilities playground there. And that is slated to be built in phase 2 for this park. The playground is, people come there all the time. There are people with strollers there every day, and this playground does not, it's not rated for toddlers, and yet a lot of the people that come are toddlers. I am aware that you are raising funds, soliciting funds. I got a letter for the playground at Coyote Point, and I'm sure that the public around Flood Park would respond if this is a funding need to raising funds to build the new playground sooner. If it could be in phase 1, it's going to be very, very popular and very needed. So I guess that is really what I have been wanting to say ever since I got the notice that funds were being solicited for Coyote Point's playground. We need the playground too. And I want to thank Nicholas for saying that you will save some of the chunks of the tree that was taken down to be part of the adventure play. That's going to be great if the tree that was already there in the park, unfortunately, was just taken down last week, which is tragic, really. But if that can be part of the adventure play, thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Alice. Just want to let you know the foundation is very excited about Flood Park. We've been following the process for a number of years, and we're also very excited about the All Abilities Playground. So yes, we will have our eye on that and hope to connect with you on that in future.
Well, I will help you with the fundraising and whatever for that.
Sounds great. Let's connect offline then.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Chair's the last speaker for this item.
There is not another speaker?
Nope, we're done. We're all good.
Okay, great. Okay, great. And now we're ready for the Parks Director's report. Nicholas?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. I'm gonna attempt to at least. Let me know if you can see. There we go. Yeah, so we have a variety of updates for the commission today and the public. And one you've heard a lot about already is Flood Park. So the department contracted with CMG landscape architects to prepare the project designs. And during the design phase, the department's going to be holding a robust community engagement process to make sure that all stakeholders are able to engage in the process and have an opportunity to have their voice heard. During this design phase, which will hold its first workshop in early 2022, we're going to be discussing things like the playground design, the pump track design, what type of surface type are the fields, field dimensions, reservation site amenities. So we're going to be able to really get down into the details of what this project will look like. What the design phase will not be, though, is reopening the EIR, talking about the issues that were already settled when the board adopted and certified the EIR and the landscape plan. So this is really going to be to dive into the details of how the features that were included in the landscape plan, how those are going to
Hey,
look
John.
and function. And
I'm all right. I'm in the Parks Commission meeting right now.
Craig.
Yeah, it's
Craig.
on Zoom. But I'm in
Craig.
my office.
Craig, you're not on mute.
The current one?
Correct.
Only tangentially, just to give them advice about the sort of
Janet, can you
deadline
mute
timeline.
Craig?
Janet should be able to mute him, yeah, as the host in the participants
Oh,
menu.
I haven't heard that yet. No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, could we,
Hey, Janet.
Janet?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the last part of what I was going to say was just that during this design process, we will be working with all stakeholders in the community to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to contribute to kind of how this project ends up functioning and looking. So very excited.
Oh wow! Yeah, I mean, I had only Bernie had emailed me maybe a month ago just to sort of ask about the deadline and timeline on this. But
give me 1 second.
I hadn't been involved.
Could we take a little break?
I knew which board member was the one who was.
Let's take a little break.
Now he's on mute.
Do we have any music?
Wasn't that musical enough?
Okay, yeah, no, Craig is on mute. Okay.
All right, there we go.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, so so the next project is the Huddert and Wunderlich Forest Health and Fuel Reduction Project, and this is and the San Mateo County Parks Department and the San Mateo Resource Conservation District have partnered to implement this project, which will mitigate the threat of catastrophic wildfires by creating shaded fuel breaks and reducing fuel loads by lessening the spread of impacts, sudden oak death, and reducing invasive species across approximately 400 acres in these two parks. And by reducing hazardous and diseased vegetation, the project will create a healthier and more vigorous forest. It'll also enhance forest resiliency and sequester greenhouse gases that are contributing to climate change. To date, about 65 acres have been treated, and that's broken up between about 61 acres in Huddert and 4 acres in Wunderlich. So you can see the images on the screen are both the same location, but you can see how much of the understory has been thinned. And one of the things that I think is really important to note is that by having these photo points, we're able to essentially monitor these areas. And so we saw when a project was done along Kings Mountain Road in Huddert Park that very quickly we started to see some of this vegetation grow back. And we actually saw that we were able to reduce the amount of invasive species, and we were able to allow these native species to thrive. So this is really a dual purpose project that is going to provide great benefits for the environment and really works towards our ability to actively steward our land. And here's another example as well. The other project that you all have heard about several times is the Tunidas Creek Beach Improvement Project. And so this is our effort with the Peninsula Open Space Trust to convert the Tunidas Creek Beach into the newest county park. This weekend, the department will be hosting with Post a public forum on site at the property to solicit feedback from the public and to allow members of the public to tell us how they want those last details of the project to look. And so we had a robust public engagement process where people were able to contribute to what type of features would be on the property, what was the type of uses we wanted to accommodate. And so now that we're past that high level phase, we are getting into the detail of how we want the structures to look and how we want the pathways to function. And so we're going to be able to bring people on site, which will be our first in-person public workshop since the pandemic started. This is such a highly anticipated event that we actually sold out of spaces. So because parking is limited, and to make sure that we are being extra cautious, you had to you had to reserve tickets on Eventbrite, and it sold out very quickly. So really, really excited about the possibilities and what this project is going to be and what this property is going to look like. We're very pleased and excited that the way the project is shaping out is something that respects the character of the property, respects the history of the property, and makes sure that what people are there to enjoy is the property itself. So very excited for how this is shaping up. The next is the off-leash dog recreation pilot program, which was discussed with the commission on August 5th. And this will be going to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration on November 9th. Should the board agree to certify the ISMND and adopt the pilot program and amend the county ordinance code, this would then go to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission to consider. And the Planning Commission would need to consider it for a coastal development permit. That would likely take place in December, maybe January. We haven't been granted a day on that yet. If the Board of Supervisors certifies the CEQA document and approves of the pilot program, and it goes to the Planning Commission, and if the Planning Commission issues a coastal development permit, then it still is appealable to the Coastal Commission. And so a start date for this is, there are too many factors in play to be able to provide a start date for the pilot program. This weekend, I was out at Pillar Point Bluff with two dog advocacy groups and we were essentially, they were out there to clean up dog poop. So this is something that if the pilot program is going to get approved, and if it is going to be successful, it's going to take a lot of work from a lot of people. And the department's been very clear with the public that the dog community and those who use these parks will need to be responsible dog owners. And that comes with a lot of criteria. And one of those is, in fact, cleaning up dog poop. So not something I thought I'd be saying in a professional meeting, but it in fact is. Quarry Park Pump Track is another project that the commission has heard of. And this was a project that we were hoping to break ground on before the end of this year. Due to some fuel reduction work that we are doing in the vicinity of this project, the project was bumped and will now not break ground until after April 15th of 2022. So if you look on this slide here, on the bottom right of the screen, you can see some tree canopy there. Those are eucalyptus trees, and this entire area is really surrounded by eucalyptus trees. And the department has gone in and removed a lot of those mature trees as part of, or to complement an effort that we are undertaking with the San Mateo Resource Conservation District to do about 100 acres of fuel reduction in Quarry Park. And so we have been working to start that effort this year. And the department staff has been working alongside the project boundaries to really enhance the effectiveness of our work there. So the new schedule will be, we release the call for bids in January, and then we look at January 2022, we will award a contract in February of 2022. And then construction would start realistically probably May, and it would take 4 to 6 weeks to complete, at which point the track will be ready for people to use, and something that we're very excited about and really looking forward to this project. Battery Point Eastern Promenade is a project that is currently ongoing and is scheduled to be completed in March of 2022. The Eastern Promenade project has several distinct elements that will result in a completed promenade at Coyote Point. The Western Promenade was completed several years ago. These improvements include a new sandy beach that's shaped as a kind of like a crescent bay, as well as a new restroom building, some new parking areas, but it's really going to enhance the recreational features in this area and allow us to provide far better services in this area. And then lastly, the department has really since the end of 2019 been operating a bit short-staffed for a variety of reasons. We were operating without an assistant director, without an administrative assistant, and we were a few ranger positions short. We have been able to fill those ranger positions, and now we are working to fill the assistant director position, which we're very excited about. So the department is getting back up to what I refer to as pre-pandemic staffing levels. So very excited to have that opportunity. And by your next meeting, we should be able to let you know who that will be. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioners, anybody have any questions for Nicholas?
I had one, and sorry if I missed it in kind of all the back and forth, but for Tunidas, do you have the kind of high level timelines like construction and when you guys plan to open up the park?
Yeah, so ideally we would be certifying our CEQA document by the end of this year, and then we'd be able to we'd go through designs for the next year, and then I believe hopefully break ground in either towards the end of 2022 or early 2023. I can certainly have that information and provide that to the commission. But I think there's still a few things that are up in the air, and so we're not able to lock that down just yet.
Got it.
Anyone else?
Hi, through the chair, this is Heather. I have some questions on Tunidas. So I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering if we heard about that item since we did the on-site meeting there so long ago where we heard from the planners to plan. Where did we land on the structure? Like what's going in, what's getting built?
Yeah, Commissioner, earlier this year, I believe at it might have been the April meeting. It was the same meeting the pump track was heard. The commission had voted to recommend to the Board of Supervisors, had voted to authorize, or I'd have to go back and look at the specific measure, but essentially the commission was presented with the preferred plan, and the commission adopted that preferred plan and recommended that the department proceed with preparing the designs and the CEQA document. So what we landed on, and I will, perhaps what I can do if you
could just send me the thing. Maybe everybody
Oh,
else
yeah,
remembers. I'm sorry. I just
No, don't worry.
Okay.
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, Commissioner, I'd love to just if I could just pull up briefly, because I do think it's worthwhile to share. It is, certainly a huge project for us and really reshapes the department in the sense that this is going to be our first recreational coastal beach in the department. So here we go. Now I'm going to try to do this and this. So this is where we landed, Commissioner. And so you'll be able to see that up here is our parking. And so the property's been divided into 3 sections. We have our upper bluff, our mid bluff, and then the beach. And then by dividing it into different segments, we're able to offer a different experience at each one. So if you wanted to go just for lunch and to take in the views, but you didn't want to have to walk all the way down to the mid bluff or the beach, you have tables and chairs and seating areas up top by the parking lot. And if you wanted to get away from the highway, but you didn't want to go all the way to the beach, you can go to that mid-bluff area where there'll be seating and an amphitheater for programming. And then if you wanted to go all the way down to the beach, you have that opportunity as well. So it's been designed to offer a variety of experiences based on what your desires are, but also done in a way that respects the character of the property. And so we're not bringing in modern structures or anything like that. It's very much respectful to the character.
Thank you. I appreciate the reminder. This is great. I'm just, so excited to see the Ranger residence on there. It's so
Hey, I was
great.
gonna say, yeah, that I know that was something that you had asked for, and that is certainly on the plans.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just, for our workforce and all the good that our Rangers do, it's great to be able to do a little something and get, some housing in there. So that's great. And then if there was so much interest in the public session, did you give any thought to doing a shorter session and splitting it in two so that more people could attend, or adding a second session?
Yeah, Commissioner, great question. So the session currently runs from 10 to 2, and it is 2 sessions. So session 1 is 10 to noon, and session 2 is noon to 2. And so what we plan on doing, at least at this point, is we are going to have people there with cameras and drones, so we can record this and record the different parts of the features. The property, and we'll be able to post that online. So even if you're not able to physically be there to participate, you will still have an opportunity to contribute to the detailed design portion of this project.
Okay, great. And those comments will count like the same as people who are present. I know that's so often a point of friction, like, oh, I couldn't get there, but I have an opinion.
Yeah, Commissioner, I am a firm believer that one vote is one vote is one vote. So whether you did it online or you did it in person, your vote counts the same.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then for the flood park comments that you made, so maybe you could just clarify, like, in layman's terms, what it means, like not reopening the EIR. Like, does that mean that the list of features, do I have it right, that means that the list of features to be included in the park is kind of set at this point, and it's just like where they go?
Yeah, Commissioner, great question. Yeah, that's correct. So what is in the landscape plan sets out a set of improvements and facilities and amenities or uses, playgrounds, fields, courts, those types of things, reservation sites, picnic sites. And so the EIR is based on that set of features and facilities. So those are set. And that's what we want to talk with the public about, is how do we want those features to function, to look, to flow. So a great example that we've heard, and we've asked this individual to bring this to the design process, is that one of the nature play area is set a bit away from the playground area. And so they said, well, it would make sense to have those two closer. I think that's great feedback, and that's the type of information we want to hear. So I've asked that individual to bring that to the design phase. One thing that we've been stressing a lot is that because there's a lot of people interested in this project, the proper time to raise those issues and to ask for those changes is during the public feedback process. Again, otherwise, it's a bit of an unequitable process, because individuals who are waiting for that to comment are being left out of the design process, essentially, and we want to avoid that from happening.
Yeah, it's a really good and valuable point. Thank you. And then just so maybe folks can hear, like, can the list of amenities get shorter? Do you know what I mean?
Meaning,
Like,
can
could
we drop
choose?
things out?
Yes, without affecting the EIR.
Yeah, we could likely drop things out without affecting the EIR.
Okay, but we can't add anything at this time. Okay.
Or
change. Or change, like the size or okay. So
yeah,
just might be helpful for people to understand what's allowed.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's a great point, right? The field that was analyzed in the EIR was a certain size. We could bring in a field that's smaller. I'm sorry, not bring in, but we could build a field that's smaller. We wouldn't be able to build a field that's bigger.
Cool, thank you. And then my last question is about the fire mitigation stuff, my favorite, just to ask who's been doing the work there.
Yeah, so so at the Huddert and Wunderlich, it's a contractor, I think out of the Sierras, but I could be wrong. It's a large scale operation. And then at Quarry Park, it's been Parks Department staff as well as a contractor. So we have not had, to my knowledge, we have not had CDCR crews working on those projects.
Thank you. And then do you know, I mean, this was like long ago action item now, but did the board put job slots in for fire related work?
Not the board did not put any positions on paper for that specific function now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
That's it for me. Oh, and congratulations on the assistant director posting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Commissioner Laguna or Commissioner Okello, do you have any comments? I don't hear anybody.
I don't have any comments.
Okay. Okay. Then we will move on. Thank you, Nicholas. You've got a lot on your plate, and that was a good presentation of everything that you guys are going to be dealing with in the near future. So thank you.
Yeah, Chair, you're going to want to call for public comment.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Thank you.
That's
Is there
right.
anybody-
Thank you, Nicholas.
Of course.
That was my job. I was going to remind him and I forgot.
No worries.
Any members of the public that have a comment on Nicholas's presentation?
There you go. Thank you. Anybody with their hand raised and wants to speak on this item, please go ahead and press *9 for calling my phone. And I do see 2 folks raised. I do see Caroline Ann Young, followed by Mr. Ron Snow. Let me go ahead and start our timer and let me know when you can be speaking. Hold on just a second. For some reason, the timer disappears if I have too many windows open. So I guess this comes to show people need to I'm gonna close my things out so that it's available when I need it. Hold on. No, but 1 second. Timer.
Janeth, while you're doing that, I do just want to say,
Yes,
Commissioner Green, you had asked if I could put the flood park URL in the chat. I was unaware there is no chat function during this meeting. So what we can do is put it on the front page of the department's website.
That's right. I forgot about that. And that was for very good reason, as I recall. So thank you. Thanks for letting folks know about that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Nicholas. No, there is a way to do it just to function with the panelists that are on, not just obviously not the public, but we didn't do that ahead of time, so it wasn't available this time. But yeah,
Yeah.
we can look into it later.
I remember that vividly. Thank you.
Yeah, we went through that. Okay, so there you go. I will go ahead and call Ann Young. Please remove your microphone, and here you go. Bring us speaking. 2 minutes, please.
I found the unmute this time. Last time you gave it to me.
Thank you.
Confusing me. Of course, now my phone is ringing.
Do you want me to reset it real fast to 2 minutes?
No, I was just going to ask Nicholas really quickly if he was going to talk about Quarry Park at all, because I know they delayed the pump track and there's people complaining about all the trees, but unlike Flood Park, people want the trees cut down because there's like, almost 500 acres of eucalyptus. So if he can talk about that, that'd be great.
What, I'm sorry, I guess I had talked about the pump track. Do you want me to recover that?
No, but Quarry Park, I mean, I hear other people saying, oh, don't cut down the trees, but on the Mid-Coast Community Council, everybody wants you to cut down trees. So, if they don't want it in Flood Park, give us the money.
Yeah, no, well, very different projects, very different purposes, and very different uses. But, the San Mateo County Parks Department is going to treat approximately 100 acres of fuel load in Quarry Park this fiscal year. Along with our partners at the RCD. We'll do about 100 acres this year, plus the Supervisor Horsley and the county put in $500,000 to remove mature eucalyptus from the medians, so which were presenting a threat to evacuation routes. So with regards to fire mitigation, the county is doing more work at Quarry Park and to protect the community of El Granada than really at this point in time anywhere else in the county. So again, about 100 acres this fiscal year alone, as well as cutting a new fire road.
Do we have another speaker?
Yeah, I don't think we're hearing the moderator.
I'm sorry. Hi, yes. I was talking to myself. And I was like, why is no one answering me? Yeah, so I'm sorry. Yes, we do have Mr. Ron Snow, and he's up next, and that's actually our last caller for this item. So Mr. Snow, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead and begin speaking when you can.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Parks on the work that's being done. I go up 84 to Alice's restaurant and over to Memorial Park quite often. And the work they did on that hairpin corner and getting rid of those eucalyptus trees is amazing. And he's right. The oak trees that were remaining, I'm so glad you kept those. I think they will thrive there now. My car was actually hit by a branch from one of those eucalyptus trees many years ago. On the Tunidas Creek thing, I think it's great that there was such a turnout for the session on Saturday. But I don't know if I was misunderstanding the other commissioner, but to me, having it sold out so quickly would really justify allowing the public to have another session out at the beach and be there with a presentation. So when you sell out something so much, that means there's a high demand. And that means there's a good part of the public that didn't get a chance to attend that. So I would hope you would consider having another Saturday session in the near future so that the rest of the public can also benefit from that. And then on the flood park, as you know, I'm associated with flood park. I think it was clear in the response to comments that if, for example, the second soccer field that was put into the woodland just months before it was approved, or weeks before it was approved, from a public's perspective, if the flood park school property could be leased and it's up for lease, Ravenswood wants to lease it, we could have that. We could actually have a bigger field at Flood Park Elementary School. I mean, at Flood Elementary School. That area is cleared and available, and it really makes sense for the commission or someone to apply a resource to chase down that lease and make that an opportunity and save the woodland. And it is possible from what was in the response to comments that that second field can be removed without impact on the EIR. I mean, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. And that is our last caller, Chair, for this item.
Okay. So we're going to move on to our regular agenda items. The first issue is regular agenda item number 1. And that's a discussion regarding the San Mateo County Parks Department's process for naming parks and park facilities. I wanted to bring this up, and what I was thinking was that there was a local group in Pacifica named a trail, and they worked with the local indigenous community to borrow language in order to name that trail. And we have markers in our parks that talk about who lived here, the people that lived here before we did. And I think that's great. It shows a little bit of history when you're walking through the parks. But I was wondering if we could go a step farther. And my suggestion was not to rename something, not to change the name of anything in a park, but there may be certain areas in our parks that are really don't have a specific name, or they don't have a name that accurately describes where they are. And a couple of examples of that which may or may not be included in our discussions in the future. These are a couple things that came to mind. There's a meadow above the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And right now the name of that is the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And it's not marine, and there are no tide pools to protect. And maybe it could be that meadow would be more accurately described with a specific name. And wouldn't it be cool if there was a name of an area like that would call attention and acknowledge the people that used to live there? And this is something that could not be done without discussion with and permission from the indigenous community. And so what I was asking for is to talk about putting this on the agenda in the future, perhaps having a subcommittee, have a couple of members of the Parks Commission to investigate situations like this, where we have areas in the park, a trail or a meadow or a forest that could perhaps have a name that would more accurately reflect the history of that area. And so that, in conjunction with signage and perhaps even apps that would describe the history of the area as you were walking along, it would just remind people that this area has a really rich cultural history. And that was something that I thought would be worth investigating. And the thing that brought it up was the naming of the trail in Pacifica, which I thought was very, very cool. So anyway, if there are other people that are interested in that, I'd like to hear what people think.
Chair Merrilees, I guess, well, I think it'd be great to kind of visit or revisit some of that. I guess the one question that I had is, I'm assuming there's already an established process for, and I know this is for parts of parks as opposed to the full park, but do we have an existing process that we can leverage or expand to be able to go after it? I mean, I think it would be great to, establish a committee and have maybe some folks from the commission work on some of that stuff, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about kind of the existing process, and then, yeah, see where we can go from there.
This is made through the chair. I was going to ask a question in the same vein. The county must have an existing policy as to how public facilities are named. There's got to be an existing policy. So I think the first step that we need to make is, look at that policy. And if we find out there's no policy, then of course we will need to establish some kind of policy so that we're not labeling ourselves in terms of every time we have to name something, we go through some motions, and we may end up going through different motions and creating some inconsistency. So the first question I would have of staff, is there a general policy countywide that helps people make decisions as to how a facility or a place would get named? And then the second question is, does the department also have its own policy that sort of grew out of the general county policy? So how do we name parks and facilities within parks? Do we have a policy that is just, it's just a parks department policy? Those would be my two questions.
Yeah, perhaps I can help with that. So there is a county ordinance. So if you were to go to, let's see, it's chapter 2.52. It is titled facility naming. And I think that would probably be the closest thing that we have to what you're referring to. And it does lay out a process for that. But the nomination to name a facility or a park or anything like that would have to be brought to the Board of Supervisors for a 4/5 vote, and be brought forward by the county manager. So a request would go to the county manager. The county manager would then bring that to the board if they were supportive of it. And there are certain requirements that come with that. But this policy primarily talks about the naming of facilities after individuals and individuals who have served the county. So it was likely drafted for a different reason than what Commissioner Merrilees is referring to.
Through the chair, I guess, for our parks, do we know what fraction of park names are named for, or place names are named for women?
Through the chair, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if we have a full roster of of our facilities that are named after people, right? So we have a lot of facilities named after primarily trees, but I'm not aware of a roster for people.
I guess I would submit. So I have been a part of naming related process in my day job for San Francisco, and in a couple of different directions. One was in the direction for the Committee on the Status of Women, where we took a look at all of the named places in the city, every building, everything. It was not a small endeavor. You would need dedicated staff, not like full-time dedicated staff, but it'd be like an analyst project. And did a just a binary at the time, male versus female, to understand that. And I guess I Neil, I appreciate your forward-lookingness. I guess, I think if we're talking about place names, obviously, like, Bay Area already has ventured into understanding if there are any names in public properties that are doing harm to people of color, especially, and or are reflecting maybe antiquated, no longer acceptable notions of what's to be celebrated. So I guess I would push a little bit harder on if we're looking at names, and obviously it's not a life safety issue. I'm sure you have plenty of things to do, but if there's an intern type project or some capacity like that to establish that roster, and then we could look holistically and try to understand if we have names that are not reflective of our contemporary values. I would be interested to hear of that. And then to the thing about naming places in cooperation with the tribes, I mean, I guess I'd just like for there to be some consideration about like the how much good can we do? I would be interested to know like if the Pacifica example resulted in any training arrangements or other kind of real resources going to the tribes as a result of the name, or if it's just the name. I think names are important and everything, but I think we have an obligation to try to do as much as we can in support of those tribal populations, and could we do more through this area of focus?
Yeah, through the chair, I would certainly agree with some of the comments that Heather is making. There has to be a sense of fairness in terms of how places or facilities are named. I think there's a greater deal of awareness now than perhaps when this facility naming policy was created. I know, for instance, Flood Park is named after James Flood, and he donated the property. And I also know that Sam McDonald Park is named after a person by the name of Mr. McDonald, and the property that the park is on was also donated initially to Stanford, and then Stanford subsequently turned around and donated it to San Mateo County, and some decision was made to name it after the original owner. Now the only issue, because a niece of his came and visited us a couple of years ago, and she did not know that his name was Sam, apparently that was just a name that, given the time of history when he started working for Stanford, that they didn't want to call him for whatever reason by his name. So somebody just called him Sam, and so she knew her as someone else. So, there's then a question of how do you use the original name? But in any case, I think the idea that Chair Merrill has certainly brought up is good. I mean, establishing a committee within the Parks and Recreation Commission, and we can review the current existing policy. And if there are suggestions that we'd like to make to the board to make to that policy, then I think this is going to be a prime opportunity, for us to be able, to do that. And I'm sure the board would be willing to listen, given the amount of transformations culturally that, the country, communities throughout the county have gone through in the last couple of years.
Is that everybody? Anybody else? Yeah, anyway, I wanted to throw this out there. I'm very interested in it. Of course, it couldn't be done without interaction, permission, and cooperation with local groups. So yeah, if anybody's interested in moving forward on this, I would suggest perhaps having a subcommittee, voting on a subcommittee perhaps at our next meeting. But I wanted to let everybody think about this and think about how to move forward. So thank you, everybody.
Through the chair, we're going to be discussing the commission's plan of action. So there's an action that we can take at this particular meeting in terms of adding it as an activity that we would like to do, I think. Even pending the action of creating the committee, that could be the action that we need to take. We make sure we create a committee, but it becomes part of our work plan.
We could talk about this in number 9.
Yes.
You're right. Do we have any public comment on this issue? Is there anybody raising their hand?
Hello there. Let me see. Let me take a look. We do not have anybody with their hand raised for this item at the moment. But
Alice Newton is raising her hand.
Let me see.
I can see it.
Look at you. You're on more honor than I am. On my end, I'm like, I don't see anybody. Okay, there you go. Hold on a second. Hold on one moment. Thank you, Commissioner. Newson, hold on, just for some reason. One second. Suki told me I need actually a new computer, but I never listened, and this is now why I should have listened to Suki. I'm like, you know what? I do need. I'm gonna look at this. Can you get me a new computer? Because that'd be great. At your next in your budget, can you just kind of add in a computer to my system, because this is really annoying at times. But I do see one item. Let me see. I do see Alice Newton. Alice Newton, please accept the request. Let me see. I mean, microphone.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. I have lived adjacent to Flood Park now for 34 years, and I have thought about the name many times because, we are close to the bay, and the park sits on Bay Road, and people think it's named because it must have flooded or it must be prone to flooding. They really don't know about James Flood, and I have thought, well, maybe the name James could be added to it. And now after this discussion, I'm thinking, well, he must have had a wife. Maybe it could be James and what's her name Park just added to it. That might not be too difficult. And then pertinent to this conversation, perhaps some things within the park can be named names that have to do with the Costanoan, the Ohlone people when they were here, and other things. I just want to support this idea of naming, and particularly Flood Park. People find the name very confusing. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Sure.
I am trying to see if I have anybody else with their hand raised, and I do not. Unless anybody in the Commissioner C? No, I think we're all good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to regular agenda item number 2, discussion about the frequency in which we meet, whether we should meet monthly or bi-monthly. And does anybody want to take this on, or?
Yes,
who
I
wants-
do, but
Okay.
I think it was probably me and Heather that, sort of propelled this idea. I think meeting, once every 2 months, I think it, does not make us as effective as I think we could possibly be. So there are a lot of decisions that we have to make, and then we have to wait 2 months, to make those decisions. And a pretty good example is the next item that we'll be talking about. We've talked about, making a formal presentation to the Board of Supervisors, as is required by the ordinance that established us. And we have not yet been able to do that because, we're always going through, by the time we decided, there's this transition and we've got to wait 2 months, and the next thing it's 4 months, and then it becomes irrelevant, and so on and so forth. So I thought that it may be helpful to us to contemplate having more regular meetings. And I of course realize from a resource perspective, that means, the Parks and Recreation Department staff is going to have to do a little bit more, and so to the extent that that is possible, then I'd really like for us to initiate the discussion, to change our meeting times. And because I know that is going to entail, the amendment of the ordinance that established this commission. And so I expect it to certainly be a lengthy process, and it will eventually have to go to the Board of Supervisors and so on and so forth. But it's something that I'd really like to have the commission, think and talk about, and, come to some determination.
Did anybody else have something to say about this? Commissioner Green
Yeah.
or Commissioner Laguna?
I'm curious to hear because Commissioner Kello mentioned me, I'm supportive of it. I think it's really hard to get anything done this way. I think it's impossible to have any momentum if this group does want to take action. I find it really limiting. And obviously my memory is not even great for the items I am present for. So, I just think it would give us greater opportunity. If there's nothing to discuss, we certainly don't have to hold the meeting every single month, I guess. Like if you're talking about adjusting the ordinance, where that's the norm, and then but still you can cancel a meeting if you don't need it. It just seems like it would be a lot easier to do anything. So I'm supportive.
I guess my take on it as a relative newcomer is that, yeah, I think the every other month keeps us from having like a little bit of a rhythm. But I'm also sensitive to the fact that the Parks Department does have to put in a significant amount of work in putting together presentations and setting things up for these meetings. So I mean, I think if we can figure out a way to either kind of limit the amount of work that would need to be done on a monthly basis for the Parks Department to actually put together some of the stuff, or limit the amount of actual topics that Director Calderon and his staff have to go through on an ongoing basis. I think that could be something that would be good. I mean, the spirit of it is right. I mean, I think we probably, if we want to be more effective, meet every month. I think it's just the logistics that I haven't kind of thought through. And to Commissioner Akello's point, I mean, I think we should start looking through and trying to figure out if there are ways that we can kind of, lessen the load on the Parks Department and really start to figure out what is that right sizing of the presentations and the topics, so that it can fit into that monthly cadence without totally overwhelming, but at the same time giving us that continuity across months, so that we can actually start getting ahead of steam, I guess, in terms of making changes and impacting some of these things that it feels like we always kind of fall a little bit short of doing every couple months.
Through the chair, I just submit also, I mean, I think it's telling, right, that the resolution we have to adopt because we meet less frequently than legislation imagines. And so I think that that's weird. And I'd like us, I think that, again, we tend to run long, right? So like we could spread items out over meetings and actually finish by 6. I think it would be beneficial to us. So I mean, in terms of next steps, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't recall on the agenda. Is this an action item? Like, are we supposed to take a vote about it, or we're just talking about it today?
Whatever people think.
No, you can't have an action item without.
Well, we have to discuss this, I think, with the Board of Supervisors. They'd have to give us some more money, and we'd have to we have to move slowly and carefully. I don't think we can just start having every month right now.
Why would we need more money?
Well, if you look at the panelists, looking down the side of your Zoom screen, all those people are getting paid, except us, of course.
Mhm.
So that's a budget item, I guess.
Is that right, Nicholas? Does the Parks Department need more money to hold more meetings, or do you have it in your budget?
So I'd have to run, I would certainly have to run probably an analysis on this. I'm pulling up the panelist list that Commissioner Merrilees is speaking of. And so, yeah, there will be some type of financial ramification of this. We've been very fortunate for the last 18 months that Janet has been filling in for us. And I don't actually think we've been, I don't know how that's been working financially, but when when the time comes to hire someone and having them participate in these meetings, that will certainly have a financial impact, as well as having certain other staff participate in these meetings. That also comes with the financial impact.
Is it an overtime cost?
It would be.
Is overtime ascribed person by person, or is it a pot of overtime in your budget?
I'm sorry, can you re-ask that question?
Is overtime assigned person by person, like you budget out your overtime, Scott's overtime? Or is it like an overtime line from which we would be drawing? And then the question is, do you have enough in the overtime line to accommodate additional meetings?
That's correct. It's the latter of the two.
Okay, so the question is just, do you have enough in the existing overtime line to accommodate additional meetings? So that's like a thing to look into. Okay, and then, sorry, but like what I was asking is if on our agenda today, it's an action item or a discussion item about this. Like, are we taking a vote about whether we want to pursue this, or are we just talking about it today?
So I deferred to Craig from a legal perspective. I believe the way I was asked to draft the agenda was as a discussion.
Okay, great, thanks.
So yeah.
So in terms of, so we cannot like today vote to go this route, but we can request a follow-up action item on our next agenda in 2 months' time to pursue legislative changes. And we could request as a part of that item for the department to bring draft legislative language that we could approve, or, make recommendations for modifications to, and vote on at that time. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Craig, go. Yeah, Craig, I think that, go for it.
So in order to do this, yeah, you would need to amend your bylaws. And then you would also need to amend your resolution that sets your schedule.
Okay.
The bylaws themselves set forth your process for amending the bylaws. I believe it involves sort of circulating the proposed amendment to the bylaw a certain amount of time in advance of a meeting to all of the commissioners. And then I believe there needs to be I think it's just a majority vote of the members present at an upcoming meeting. But I guess it's that's the action that would need to be taken in order to, because right now your bylaws say that you meet every other month.
Great.
And so that's what you would need to amend.
So can I request as part of this discussion, an action item at our next meeting where the documents to be discussed would be these revised bylaws drafted in the spirit of the conversation here? And then, I'm sorry, but like, would you draft the amendments, or like, do we have to do that as non-lawyers?
You know, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question right now.
Okay.
I think, you know, what you could do, yeah, I mean, I think if you're, as an action item today, you know, I know it's listed as a discussion item. The Brown Act doesn't talk about discussion items or action items. It just talks about items on the agenda. Whether
Okay.
you identify an item as an action item or a discussion item is mostly to preview to the public, whether you intend to take action on something. I think what you're talking about, if what you're asking is whether, for example, you could make a motion to place an item on the December agenda to amend the bylaws, that I think you could do that, yes.
And in so doing, would I be like indirectly requesting you to draft that language, or do I need to ask for that separately?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question right now, but I think you could, you know, I guess you could make a motion to direct staff to do that.
All right, well then I'd like to make that their motion. Where we would place this item to amend the bylaws, and you said there was also to amend our resolution.
I'd like to discuss this a little bit more before we vote on anything, if that's okay.
I mean, that's fine, but I can still make the motion now, right? So I just want to get the motion out on the table. So my motion is to place on our next meeting's agenda amendment to the bylaws and the associated resolution for our meeting cadence. Excuse me if I don't have that exactly right. And to ask for staff support, legal support, so that we get the language legal. That's the motion.
And I would second it.
The only point I would make with that, commissioners, is that you know, when you amended your bylaws I guess it was last year, or maybe the year before, you amended it so that you actually set your annual meeting schedule by an annual resolution. So there already is going to need to be an action item on your December agenda to set your meeting schedule.
Great.
For 2022. But again, right now your bylaws say you meet every other month.
So what I'm actually asking for is just a motion. I'm moving, because there's already going to be an item where we vote on our annual meeting schedule in December. That's a given. Instead, what I'm really moving is to include as a related item, amendment of the bylaws on this subject. Is that right?
I think that's correct.
Okay, so amending my motion to reflect all that. Thank you.
I need a point of information from County Council. You did mention that that amendment still has to be circulated over a certain period of time. We're legally required to circulate it over a period of time. And so if we do that, would we make the December meeting in terms of being able to adopt a resolution, changing our meeting frequency?
What the bylaws provide is that at least 14 days written notice must be given to each member of the commission of the intention to alter, amend, or adopt new bylaws at such meeting. And such notice must include the text of the proposed alteration, amendment, or substitution.
Okay.
And does the public need to be notified that far in advance, or it's just the commissioners?
The language of the bylaws says it's circulated to the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I do people mind if I jump in here for a second? Yeah, Maida and I changed the bylaws it seemed like it was 2 years ago. Maybe it was a year ago, but it seemed like it was a couple of years ago. And the way we did it was we formed a subcommittee, and I think we met with a parks director, or acting parks director at the time, and we amended the bylaws. And then we brought those bylaws back to the commission. And the reason I bring that up is because that's kind of how we've moved things forward in the past. Rather than having a meeting every month, we would do things by subcommittee in between the meetings to kind of prepare for the meetings. And the benefit of that is that when you're working without a quorum, you can do different things. You can work with park staff and discuss things in more detail that you don't have time to do at a regular meeting. You know, for instance, if you wanted to go over the budget and get into the detail of budget items, that's very difficult to do in a meeting. And in a way, you don't really need to do that in front of the public. If you find something that is interesting, then you can bring it to the public at the next meeting. And that's kind of how things have gone in the past. You know, with the dog committee, we met in various incarnations for 5 years separately from the commission, but we brought back information to the commission every 2 months. But there was a lot of work that was going on by commission members in between those. And we were having public meetings in between the commission meetings, but they weren't full commission meetings. And the reason that can work well is that you don't have to have everybody from the Parks Department sitting there at the meeting at the time. So you're not taking their time, and you can actually kind of move much faster and consolidate issues for the semi-monthly meetings, or bi-monthly, semi-monthly. Anyway, that's how things. I'm perfectly willing to meet every month, but it seems like if we want to move things forward, we do have to do work in subcommittees aside from, you know, to really get into details. It's hard to do it with a quorum, and it's hard to do it in the format that we have in our semi-monthly meetings. So that's, I mean, I'll go either way if people want to go the monthly way, but I want to suggest that if we had subcommittees and those subcommittees met in between our commission meetings, it may be that our commission meetings would have more issues to get into, because it's really hard to get into the weeds in a meeting where you have a lot of public that wants to weigh in, and you have a lot of park staff that are sitting waiting, and they're on the payroll. So anyway, just wanted to suggest that that's how the Parks Commission has worked in the past, by having meetings in between the official semi-monthly meetings.
Through the chair, I think we do have a motion on the table, and it has been seconded. So perhaps this is a call for the motion discussion here. But what I would say is that we've had a very healthy discussion on this issue, and in some sense, almost acting as the subcommittee that the chair is referencing. And so I think the action that is being proposed, I think we need to take a vote on it and just push it forward and make it happen. You know, I think part of my concern is, even with that, it's such a simple action as we are about to undertake is going to take 2 months. It's going to take 2 months. And such simple actions, procedural actions, should not take that long. And I think that's what sort of has been weighing us down. You know, it's just taking too long to make simple decisions. And the frequent meetings would sort of help sort of expedite that. So through the chair, I think with a motion on the floor and a second, I think I think I'm ready to vote.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. You want to have a roll call?
Chair Marilis, before we take a vote, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the motion actually is. Is it just to present all of the documentation plus like the extra staff costs and the overtime and all that other stuff? Is it to actually see all of those pieces and then vote on the changes? That's what I wasn't 100% clear on.
Yes, and let me try to clarify because
Thank you. Thank you.
I think what I was trying to say is, okay, so motion to request an agenda item at our December meeting to revise our bylaws to reflect the desired meeting cadence, monthly meeting cadence. As part of that item, to be able to make an informed decision, we would want to confirm that there are no budgetary constraints to be aware of in the current fiscal, that we can afford it. And we'd ask staff to help us prepare the documents that we would vote on so that when we set our 2022 calendar, like we could do all this as a holistically at the December meeting. That's my motion. Super elegant. I'm sorry.
Can I paraphrase a little bit?
Please do, if you can make it shorter.
The intention is to get more information and vote on whether we want to change the bylaws at the next meeting.
Incorrect.
Have a
Incorrect.
presentation at the next meeting
No.
regarding budget and issues that would
No.
give us, no?
No, the desire is to actually change the calendar at the next meeting, change the bylaws so that we can have a monthly calendar for 2022.
So you want to vote at this meeting to change the,
No, this motion is to agree to have the agenda item next meeting where we see the revised bylaws and vote on them. We will have them at least 14 days in advance. And we can vote next time to actually make the changes. I'd like to have that item before the item where we set the calendar, so that when we set the calendar, we can set it monthly.
okay, but perhaps we will have more information at the next meeting. Is that?
That's the goal, right? That there would be this information presented confirming that there's enough overtime in the budget, not unduly burdensome on staff, et cetera.
So we're not voting now to go monthly. We're voting to put it on the agenda in December.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, do we want to have public discussion on this item? Are there any hands raised? Do we have to have public discussion before we vote? I think we should, right?
That's correct.
Craig, quickly, is there, I'm just confused. So it's on the agenda as an informational item. So is there a vote today? That's the part.
That was my first
It's not
question.
Right.
It's not an informational item. It's a discussion item. I think
That's
those two words are different.
Sorry,
Through
you're
the
absolutely
chair.
correct. You're absolutely correct.
I think, Nicholas, that the motion is appropriate within the agenda listing.
Perfect.
Okay, do we have any hands raised? I don't see any. Janet, do you see anything? Janet is muted.
There are no hands raised, Chair Marilis. I think you can proceed to a roll call vote.
Okay. Janet, do you want to do the roll call or should I do the roll call? I guess I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Green,
Aye.
Commissioner Okello,
Aye.
Commissioner Laguna,
Aye.
Commissioner Marilis, aye. And Commissioner Manna is not here, right? Okay. Okay, it passes. We are moving on to discussion regarding the October 19th presentation to the Board of Supervisors.
So the commission had asked some time ago for this presentation, and it had been bumped kind of for a variety of reasons. And so I believe at the last 2 meetings ago, Commissioner Green had asked about this. I had spoke with the county manager, and we had locked down October, I believe it was 19th as the date. And so I just wanted to give the commission an opportunity to discuss this, and so I'll turn it over to the commission.
So we can go over the list of things that has happened in the last year or so, maybe longer than a year, because we haven't given a presentation in quite a while. So maybe we could go for a year and a half or so. It would be nice if a couple of us were there. We don't know exactly what time it's going to be, right? They hold their meetings in the morning, and we're not agendized. So it'd either be.
Yeah, keep going, Chair, sorry.
Yeah, we don't know exactly when it's going to be. I don't know what people's schedules are like. It might be early in the morning, it might not, right, Nicholas?
So Chair, these presentations go at the beginning of the agenda, so 9 a.m.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, just for clarification purposes, it could be 9:10, 9:15, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be 1 o'clock, right? It's going to be 9:15.
Oh, that's nice of them to do that. Do you know how much time we will be getting? 2 minutes?
I believe 10 minutes has been set aside for this.
Okay.
Although naturally, if the board is has a lot of questions and wants to have back and forth, obviously, the board has the ability to do so, and that can go past that.
Okay. Does somebody want to get together and meet offline and talk about this presentation? Does anybody have any items that they absolutely want included?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Did you say this is October 19th, like in 12 days?
Yes.
That's correct.
And when do materials need to be submitted to the board for that presentation?
So this would be a presentation, right? So there would be no memo, no resolution. So
Nothing.
we try to get it in on the Friday before, although it could also be the Monday, the day before.
Sorry, so that's the fit. So that's 1 week. You've given us 1 week to prepare a presentation before the board. I appreciate the date, but I that is really short turnaround, and that's fine. Like, I don't want to reject the date, but that's.
Commissioner, I'm certainly happy to go back and talk with the county manager's office and push it if you'd like.
Definitely not, but I would like to acknowledge that that's like really short. And that's not very nice. So yes, thank you for getting the date.
I think through the chair, I think we discussed previously, and Commissioner Manny and Commissioner Green were going to get together and sort of, formulate what the presentation is going to be. But I'm totally in favor of what the chair is suggesting, that if we can do something in the next couple of days, and of course it just has to be 2 commissioners. We cannot have 3. And so,
yes, that team was when I was chair and Sam was the most recent chair.
Right.
So, and I was going to give the presentation because I was chair. Neil, I don't know if you were planning to do so because you're chair, or if you were like, we need to decide who's going to present.
I was planning on it, but
That's great.
I'm flexible. If anybody has, I think we ought to talk about it as a group if we can.
Yeah.
At least a couple of us getting together and going over our agendas, what we've discussed, what went on, what issues we foresee taking on in the future.
So here's what I would suggest through the chair. I would suggest that the Chair Merrilees and Commissioner Green meet and prepare that presentation.
Okay,
Since
I'm happy to do that.
Since we are limited to 2 people, we can't have 3.
no, but
So,
Right.
yeah, Craig, could we ask for input from the other members of the commission without responding to them, but just having them send us input that they think they'd like included in this presentation?
What I would suggest is that you have that routed through staff, and then it can be sort of disaggregated.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to include as much of the whole commission's thoughts as we can without having to have a special meeting to discuss it ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. Agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'd love to get together and meet with you, Heather, when you have time.
Sure, we can connect offline and find a time in the next couple of days to.
Yeah, and Commissioner Laguna and Okello, I'd love to hear what you would like to have presented. If there's anything you'd like included that you think we might be forgetting, or aspirations that you think we ought to work on going forward that we can present to the board.
yeah, and through the chair, the thing to remember, whatever comments we have, we're going to route it through staff. So
Yeah.
we'll send it to the director, Director Calderon, and then he can share it with the
Use
committee.
polite language.
And I'll certainly work with Craig on that to
Great.
make sure
you.
we're clean on that.
I don't
But
want to have
are-
a serial meeting, but yeah, if we can include thoughts, that'd be great.
And I guess I would, through the chair, just invite for either of the commissioners here, both, if you have any thoughts, right now, you would like notes for us to keep in mind. Certainly those would be welcome even at this time.
Anything that you've been thinking of that you can, think of right now?
I'm sorry, I can't come with thoughts right now, but I do have some thoughts, I think right now, all I'm looking at is the time. I have another meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And so, it's important to me that I be out.
Great. Okay, I'll Heather, you and I, let's meet offline and
Sounds good.
figure that out.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to talk to the public? Are there any hands raised? Anybody would like to chime in about a presentation to the Board of Supervisors?
Hi, Chair, let me double check. At this point, don't see any hands raised at this time.
Great. Okay. We are down to commissioner reports. And under the commissioner reports agenda, we were going to talk about the work plan. And under the work plan, I was suggesting a subcommittee to talk about perhaps using some historical names in the future and working with local indigenous community. So that's one thing. Does anybody else have any ideas for committees they'd like to start, subcommittees or work that they view as important moving forward?
Well, can we just note that the work plan now is like going on 2 years old? Like it was drafted at the beginning of 2 chairs' tenure ago. So it doesn't include Commissioner Laguna. Hi, Commissioner Laguna, you can sign up for work this way. And it reflects a structure. I think we were talking about like partnerships with health, equity and access, and there was a third piece that I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think we can maybe preserve that structure, but I guess I submit that we need to update it. It's old, like it doesn't have any new tasks on it.
Right.
Because it's never been updated for the current year. Now we're coming on another year. So I think that if I just humbly suggest that I think that the question is like, what work do we want to do? And then the offline work would be updating the work plan to reflect that for the coming year. Yeah.
Yes.
So through the chair, why don't we put it in the next agenda as an action item and call it really updating the work plan.
Well,
And then, but what we could do today is add as one of the tasks, the setting up of a naming committee or a naming subcommittee, right?
with only 2 members.
Yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps other committees, if people want to move forward with some work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why don't, do you want to do that now?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, I think we had, I forget we call it budget and something committee. I mean, I'd like to preserve that committee and remain on it. And I know it's an off year for budget this year. We had also talked about establishing strategic, measures for the department, all of these things that got waylaid by COVID, totally understandably. But that work still remains and I'm still interested to do it. So I hope the next iteration of the work plan preserves that.
Is there somebody who would like to work with me interacting with the local Indigenous community and see if there's a possibility for moving forward? Is there anybody else besides me that's interested in doing that?
Through the chair, I'm more interested in overarching policy. So I'd be willing to work on you on that one. And that is ultimately going to include how we interface with the external entities in terms of fairness and whatever other principles we want to uphold. So I'd be willing to work with you on just an overarching policy about naming, park facilities.
Okay. Great. That's Mateo and I, and we can get together, and we might need a little bit of staff help occasionally, Nicholas, and maybe we could contact you if we did, like if we needed a place to meet or if we wanted to hold some public meetings or something. Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner, certainly happy to assist with that.
Great, thank you. Do we have to vote on that to establish a subcommittee? Is that an action item, or can we just establish it?
I don't know that, I don't think you need to take action on that.
Okay, great. That's just work that we'll start then. Is anything else on anybody's mind? I know it's 5:59 here. We're coming up on 6 o'clock. Is there anything anybody else wants to move forward on that we should all know about?
I guess just to Chair Merrilees, just to wrap up. So with this work plan, what will be the process for kind of updating, upgrading, kind of scrubbing the work plan? Would that be done in a future meeting? Is that, yeah, how, what I'm just not familiar with the process for updating these work plans.
So we have the work plan, but I think there's nothing stopping anybody from getting started with that work. If you want to look at the work plan and see if there's something you want to be involved in.
Yeah.
And there may be some work that other people have suggested that they don't want to be involved in right now. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. Take a look at the work plan.
Okay. Yeah, and there's one right now. I know that Commissioner Manna was doing the liaison to the Parks Foundation. I think you guys probably know I'm actually on the board of the Parks Foundation right now. So I think we've got that one checked off. But yeah, so it's things like that and trying to kind of line up. So would I just make kind of edits to this document? Where's the document? Or like I just want to know functionally what would be the right way to go about kind of putting my suggestions, and do I have to do it through staff? Yeah, I just wasn't sure.
Through the chair. So that document came about. So when I started as chair, I made it. It was not made by staff. I just made it in between meetings, and then I brought it to the commission. And since your chairship is looming, it may well be worth doing a more full revise for the year to come. And the way that I did that was just, taking what I'd heard at commission in terms of people's priorities and interests and drafting it. I think all of us, there's no formal process for it. That's to say, except, when it comes to commission, then it's a public document, and that's like kind of what, when we can make recommendations for edits there. But it is not a staff developed document.
Okay, got it.
Okay, through the chair, final comments, and I do have to leave. It started off with a process that Chair Merrill elaborated upon earlier. There was a work plan subcommittee that was put together. And so, they put in the framework. And when Heather was the chair, she updated, that work plan. So we may either do it by reestablishing a subcommittee that can work on it and update it, or we could have the chair work with somebody and update it, interface with it, with folks and get it updated. So we have those two options, and I do apologize. I do have to leave.
Yeah, if anybody wants to work an update, we can do that, or Heather, you can do that. If there
No, I'm good. I did a whole one. I'm good. So yeah, I think it makes sense for the leadership of the commission at present to own the document and then can hand over from year over year.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is there any public comment?
Hello there.
Reports?
Hello, hi. Let me see. Everyone's been really quiet. So, no, there aren't any. Nope, nothing. From the public. That. Yeah, nothing from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, then I'm going to move that we adjourn. Is that okay? Everybody good with that?
Great, and the time is 6:03.
Great. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll get some sleep, Nicholas.
Thank you.